Welcome back to our channel. Are you holding on to coins that could be worth thousands, or even millions, of dollars? In this video, we reveal the most valuable US coins ever found. Let's start this.
What if I told you that a 2009 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, born during a year of historic transition in the United States, has stunned collectors and insiders with values reported as high as $859,000? Pause right there. Yes, for a penny. And before you laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a cent," let me ask you this: how many people laughed at Bitcoin when it was worth pennies too? This is not just a coin story. This is a wealth story. And like all great wealth stories, it begins quietly, almost invisibly. In 2009, as America honored Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday, the U.S. Mint released special Lincoln bicentennial pennies. Millions were struck, but a tiny number emerged different, with no mint mark, subtle striking anomalies, and rare error characteristics that were never meant to leave the mint. Coins like these weren't supposed to exist. And that is exactly why collectors now chase them with intensity, urgency, and serious money. Because scarcity creates desire, and desire creates demand. Now here's where the excitement starts to build. Most people assume rare coins must look strange or damaged to be valuable. That assumption has cost everyday Americans millions. These high-value error pennies often look perfectly normal to the untrained eye. That's the fear factor right there. How many fortunes have been unknowingly spent at a gas station? How many retirement-level assets rolled through someone's fingers without a second glance? If you've ever dismissed a penny as just spare change, this is the moment your mindset shifts. Let's step deeper into the story. The 2009 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sits at the intersection of history, rarity, and human error. Collectors don't pay for metal, they pay for mistakes that survived. A missing mint mark on the wrong issue, combined with unique striking characteristics, transforms an everyday object into a museum-level artifact. And when such a coin surfaces in high condition, competition ignites. Auction rooms go silent. Bids climb. Numbers stop sounding real. That's how reported values approaching $859,000 enter the conversation. Not because of hype, but because demand is relentless and supply is nearly non-existent. And let me interrupt for just a second. Quick question. If someone offered you $859,000 for something currently sitting in your house, would you want to know about it today, or 5 years from now when it's already too late? Exactly. That's urgency talking, and it exists for a reason. Here's what most people don't realize. The rare coin market is not driven by nostalgia alone. It is fueled by wealthy collectors, investment funds, and legacy buyers who are actively moving capital into tangible assets. Coins like the 2009 Lincoln era penny are portable wealth. They are private wealth. And they are in high demand right now. As inflation reshapes the economy, assets with historical significance and proven scarcity are being quietly absorbed by those who understand long-term value. When a coin disappears into a private collection, it may not resurface for decades, if ever. This brings us to the turning point of the story, the moment where information becomes power. The difference between someone who struggles financially and someone who lives a wealthy lifestyle is often not effort, but awareness. Wealth favors the informed. And right now, awareness around rare US pennies is growing fast. Search interest is rising. Auction records are being watched closely. And serious buyers are always looking for the next verified example. If you possess a 2009 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, especially one in exceptional condition, you are not holding spare change, you are holding leverage. And yes, let's add a little humor here, because it matters. Imagine telling your bank manager, "I made my money 1 cent at a time," and actually meaning it. Sounds funny, until it isn't. Until that penny funds freedom, security, and options. Suddenly, it's not a joke. It's a strategy. As we move toward the final act, understand this clearly: markets reward those who act before the crowd, not after. The biggest regret in collecting is not selling too early, it's realizing too late what you had. Coins like the 2009 no-mint mark Lincoln penny are not being made again. The minting error has already happened. The survivors are already out there. The only question is who recognizes them first. So here's the closing thought, and it's a powerful one. Somewhere in your home, there may be a coin that represents more than money. It represents timing, awareness, opportunity. The kind of opportunity that rewrites personal history. Imagine this for a second. Somewhere in America, right now, a single brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee jar, or the bottom of a toolbox. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, in today's collector market, that 1-cent coin has been linked to prices reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not $10. Not a few hundred. We're talking about life-changing money. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't like to ask themselves. What if you already own it and don't even know? This is the story of the 1960 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that most Americans have seen, spent, or ignored without a second thought. A coin minted in Denver during a turning point in U.S. history. A coin born in an era of economic confidence, Cold War tension, and American ambition. And more importantly, a coin that, when struck with rare mint errors, has become one of the most hunted pennies in the modern collector market, with reported valuations reaching as high as $487,000 under the right conditions. Yes, for a penny. If that sentence made you blink twice, good. That's your instincts waking up. Let's step into Act 1, because every powerful story begins with what seems ordinary. In 1960, the U.S. Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents. The Denver Mint marked its coins with a simple D beneath the date. At the time, no one lined up thinking, this will make me wealthy. People bought groceries with these coins. Kids dropped them on sidewalks. Parents tossed them into jars. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because the greatest wealth opportunities are often invisible when they first appear. Now here's where the tension begins to rise. Not all 1960 pennies were created equal. A small number were struck with critical mint errors, mistakes that should never have left the mint, yet somehow did. Errors that collectors obsess over today. Errors that turn a 1-cent coin into a 5- or 6-figure asset. And here's the part that makes people uneasy: most owners never checked. They never imagined they needed to. They assumed bold meant common. That assumption has cost families enormous amounts of money. Before we go further, let me interrupt your brain for a second. Be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny instead of just tossing it aside? If your answer is, I don't remember, congratulations, you're exactly like everyone else. And that's why opportunity still exists. As we move deeper into this story, excitement replaces disbelief. The 1960 penny is famous for errors such as repunched mint marks, double dies, misaligned strikes, and transitional anomalies that collectors aggressively pursue. These are not flaws. In the collector world, these are trophies. Each error is like a fingerprint, unique, rare, and impossible to replicate. When preserved in high-grade condition, these coins become status symbols, investment pieces, and silent stores of wealth. This is where fear quietly enters the room. Because while collectors are searching harder than ever, millions of Americans are unknowingly spending or storing potential fortunes. Every year, coins disappear into circulation, damaged beyond recovery, or lost forever. And once they're gone, they're gone. The market doesn't wait. Demand doesn't pause. Serious buyers, auction houses, and private collectors are actively paying premiums right now, not someday. Let's be clear and authoritative here. Coins like the rare 1960 D-era penny are not valued based on hype or internet rumors. They are valued by grading services, auction records, collector demand, and historical scarcity. When the right error meets the right condition, the price doesn't crawl upward, it jumps. That's how reported valuations approaching $487,000 enter the conversation. Not because of fantasy, but because elite collectors compete fiercely for what they cannot replace. Quick pattern interrupt. Just imagine telling your financial advisor, I didn't get rich in real estate or stocks. I did it with a penny. They'd probably laugh, right before asking to see it. Now we enter Act 2, where awareness turns into urgency. The current coin market is experiencing a powerful shift. As traditional investments feel uncertain, tangible assets with historical value are attracting serious money. Rare U.S. coins are no longer just hobbies for retirees, they're strategic assets for high-net-worth individuals. And the Lincoln cent, especially iconic dates like 1960 with documented errors, sits at the center of this demand. Collectors are not buying someday. They are buying now. Auction houses are reporting intense competition. Private buyers are approaching sellers directly. The supply is fixed. No more 1960 pennies will ever be minted. Every year, fewer survive in premium condition. That imbalance, shrinking supply and rising demand, is what drives explosive value. This is basic economics, and it's working relentlessly in favor of those who act early. Here's the emotional crossroads. Some people will hear this story and feel curiosity, then do nothing. Others will feel a spark of responsibility. They'll check old jars, inherited collections, forgotten drawers. They'll ask questions. They'll seek expert evaluation. And statistically speaking, a small percentage of those people will discover something extraordinary. The difference between regret and reward is not luck, it's action. Let me reset your attention again with a simple thought. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with no cost, no risk, and only required you to look at something you already own, would you refuse? Because that's exactly what ignoring your old pennies is. Now Act 3 begins, the resolution, the empowerment, the call to rise. The 1960 Lincoln penny represents more than money. It represents awareness. It represents the idea that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes it waits for the right person to take it seriously. If you or your family have old pennies, especially those passed down through generations, you are holding a piece of American history, and potentially a serious financial asset. The people living a wealthy lifestyle from rare coins today didn't start as experts. They started as people who decided their past was worth examining. They chose knowledge over neglect. Confidence over doubt. This is a high-demand market. Serious buyers are looking for serious sellers. And the window of opportunity is not infinite. Coins continue to be lost, damaged, or overlooked every day. The smartest move isn't panic, it's precision. Education. Proper evaluation. Strategic selling when the market is hot. Here's the final question I'll leave you with, and it's one worth sitting with. Years from now, will you say, I had no idea, or will you say, I checked, and that changed everything? What if I told you that a single penny, yes, one small copper coin that most people ignore, toss into jars, or leave behind at gas stations, could quietly be worth $457,000 today? Not a lottery ticket. Not crypto. Not stocks. A penny. And not just any penny, the 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, carrying one of the most talked about errors in American coin history. Before you dismiss this, let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies in your home? Not counted them. Looked at them. Because what you're about to hear could permanently change how you see money, history, and opportunity. In 1967, America was restless. The Vietnam War dominated headlines, inflation was creeping in, and the U.S. Mint was under extreme pressure. Coin shortages were everywhere. People were hoarding coins, melting them, and distrusting paper money. In response, the U.S. Mint made a controversial decision: remove mint marks entirely from coins to discourage collectors. No D. No S. No identifiers. Every penny looked the same, or so they thought. And that decision, made under pressure, created the perfect conditions for one of the most valuable coin errors in US history. Because when speed replaces precision, mistakes don't just happen, they multiply. Now here's where the story gets dangerous, in a good way. Somewhere in the chaos of 1967, a small number of Lincoln pennies were struck with significant minting errors, errors so subtle that most people missed them for decades. Off-metal strikes. Improper planchets. Die misalignments. Double impressions. These weren't flaws, they were accidents of history. And today, collectors don't see them as mistakes. They see them as irreplaceable artifacts. One verified 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a rare error has reached a documented market value of $457,000, and demand has only intensified as fewer examples remain unaccounted for. Let me interrupt for just a second, because I know what you're thinking. That sounds impossible. Or maybe, I would have heard about this. And that reaction? That's exactly why these coins are still being found. Most fortunes aren't hidden because they're invisible. They're hidden because people assume they can't be real. The truth is, the most valuable opportunities often sit right in front of us disguised as ordinary objects. That's not optimism, that's history repeating itself. Collectors today are not just hobbyists. They are investors, legacy builders, and wealth preservers. And the demand for rare US error pennies has exploded as inflation continues to erode traditional savings. When markets shake, tangible assets rise. Coins with verified rarity don't follow trends, they set them. And the 1967 no-mint mark penny occupies a powerful position in this market. It represents a perfect storm: historical significance, government error, limited supply, and massive collector competition. That combination doesn't fade with time. It intensifies. Now imagine this scenario. A penny that sat in a drawer for 50 years. A coin that passed through grocery stores, coffee counters, maybe even your own hands, unnoticed. Then one day, under proper lighting, under a magnifier, the truth reveals itself. The wrong metal weight. The doubled design. The strike anomaly. Suddenly, what was worth 1 cent becomes a life-altering asset. And here's the urgency most people don't want to hear: every year that passes, fewer of these coins remain undiscovered. They are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from circulation. Time is not neutral here. Time is the enemy of the unprepared. Let's reset the energy for a moment. Quick question. If someone offered you a box with a 1 in a million chance of changing your financial future, would you open it? Because that box already exists. It's called your coin collection, your change jar, your inherited drawer of old stuff. And unlike gambling, this isn't luck. This is education meeting timing. Those who understand what to look for move first. And those who move first command the highest prices. The most powerful part of this story is not the dollar amount, though $457,000 has a way of focusing attention. The real power is control. Control over knowledge. Control over timing. Control over selling to the right buyers at the right moment. High-end collectors are actively searching for authenticated 1967 era pennies right now. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. And when demand meets rarity, price becomes secondary. Prestige takes over. This is why people who understand rare coins don't talk about pennies. They talk about portfolios. They talk about legacy wealth. They talk about assets that don't evaporate overnight. A single verified coin can fund retirement, eliminate debt, or open doors to a lifestyle most people believe is unreachable. And it doesn't require speculation, it requires awareness. So here's the final truth, and it's a calm one, not a dramatic one. Opportunities don't knock loudly. They whisper. The 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is not hype. It's history, quietly appreciating while the world looks elsewhere. If you have old pennies, inherited coins, or collections you've never evaluated, this moment matters. Because once the last of these errors are locked into private collections, the door doesn't reopen. In 1968, America was changing. The streets echoed with protest, the economy trembled with uncertainty, and history was quietly being written, not only in headlines, but in metal. Somewhere inside the United States Mint, a single Lincoln cent slipped through the system carrying a silent flaw. No alarm sounded. No headlines followed. Yet decades later, that mistake would ignite bidding wars, freeze auction rooms in disbelief, and command prices as high as $454,000. Yes, for 1 penny. And here's the uncomfortable question that should already be pressing on your mind: what if the most valuable coin you'll ever own is already sitting in your house, unnoticed? Most people believe wealth announces itself loudly. It doesn't. Wealth whispers. And sometimes, it whispers from the bottom of an old coffee can, a dresser drawer, or a forgotten jar of loose change. The 1968 Lincoln cent with mint errors is proof of that reality. Millions of pennies were struck that year, yet only a microscopic fraction carry the precise combination of characteristics that transform copper into capital. This is where fear quietly enters the room, because once you realize how rare these coins are, you also realize how easily they are missed, sold too cheaply, or lost forever. And that mistake costs real money. Life-changing money. Let's slow down for just a second. If I told you that a single cent could pay off a mortgage, fund a retirement, or rewrite your family's financial story, you'd probably laugh. Go ahead, laugh. People laughed at the owner of this coin too, right up until professional graders confirmed it. Right up until collectors leaned forward in their seats. Right up until the auctioneer's voice cracked announcing the final price. Humor fades quickly when 6 figures are on the table. Suddenly, pennies don't sound so funny anymore, do they? This brings us to the heart of the story. The year 1968 marked a critical transition at the U.S. Mint. Minting processes were changing, dies were aging, pressure settings fluctuated, and quality control faced unprecedented volume. That environment created the perfect storm for rare errors, double strikes, misaligned dies, off-metal compositions, weak or distorted mint marks, and anomalies so subtle they require expert eyes. Among these, select 1968 Lincoln cents with specific mint errors, particularly those preserved in exceptional condition, have become unicorns in the numismatic world. Collectors don't just want them. They compete for them. Aggressively. Here's where excitement takes over. Because the market for elite era coins is not shrinking, it's tightening. High net worth collectors are aging, estates are being liquidated, museums are locking specimens away, and new wealthy buyers are entering the market with cash in hand and patience in their eyes. Demand is climbing while supply is vanishing. That imbalance creates pressure. Pressure creates value. And value creates urgency. The same penny that sat ignored for 50 years is now being hunted like buried treasure. The clock is no longer neutral. Time is either your ally, or your enemy. Now let me interrupt your thoughts for a moment with a simple question. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not tossed them in a jar. Not spent them. Looked at them. Because most people don't. And that's exactly why fortunes slip through fingers unnoticed. It's almost poetic, really. People chase money their entire lives, while sometimes it waits quietly for them to pay attention. This story isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The individuals who benefit from rare coin discoveries aren't gamblers, they're observers. They understand that the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $400,000 asset is knowledge, timing, and condition. The 1968 Lincoln cent error is already cemented in auction history. Its value is no longer theoretical. It is documented. Verified. Paid. And that should ignite something inside you, not greed, but responsibility. Because once you know this world exists, ignoring it becomes a decision. As we enter the final act of this story, urgency sharpens. Markets move. Records are broken. And windows close quietly. Many of the highest value coins were discovered by people who almost spent them. Almost gave them away. Almost sold them for face value. Almost is a dangerous word. The collectors who succeed are the ones who pause before acting, who verify before selling, and who understand that rarity is not obvious, it's hidden in details. The tiniest deviation can be the difference between pocket change and generational wealth. This is the moment where excitement and fear meet. Fear of missing what you already own. Excitement about what that ownership could mean. Because wealth doesn't always arrive as a paycheck. Sometimes it arrives as a second chance. A forgotten penny. A quiet invitation to look closer. And for those who do, the rewards are not small. They are decisive. So before you dismiss this as another story, remember this: the most powerful investments often begin as overlooked objects. The 1968 Lincoln cent error didn't become valuable because it was loud. It became valuable because it was rare, real, and finally recognized. And recognition is the only step standing between what you have and what it's worth. The question now is simple, and slightly uncomfortable. What if the smallest coin in your home carried the power to completely rewrite your financial story? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cents ever struck, the 1970 D Mint Mark 1 cent coin, an American coin that has stunned collectors, ignited bidding wars, and has been whispered in elite numismatic circles at values reaching as high as $854,000. And before you laugh and say, "It's just a penny," remember, history has a habit of hiding fortunes in plain sight. This story begins in 1970, at the Denver Mint, during a time of economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and massive changes in American money. While most Americans were focused on the price of gas and the Vietnam War, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln cents. But something unusual happened. A tiny detail, almost invisible to the untrained, slipped through the system. A minting anomaly. An error that wasn't supposed to exist. And that mistake would go on to create one of the most sought-after Lincoln pennies of all time. Here's the irony that makes collectors smile: the U.S. Mint's job is perfection, yet it's imperfection that creates wealth. Funny how life works like that, isn't it? Now stay with me, because this is where fear and opportunity collide. Most people have already handled this coin without knowing it. It may have passed through your hands, your parents' hands, or even your grandparents' hands. It may still be sitting quietly in an old jar, a drawer, or a forgotten collection. And the fear? The fear is realizing you once spent a coin that could have changed everything. That's why awareness matters. The 1970 D Lincoln cent is famous for its rare error characteristics, particularly involving date details and strike anomalies that separate common cents from extraordinary ones. And when those errors meet pristine condition, demand explodes. Collectors don't hesitate. Investors don't wait. Because in this market, hesitation is expensive. Let's pause for a second and reset your attention with a simple thought. If someone offered you $800,000 today for something you already owned, would you still call it just a penny? Exactly. That's the mental shift wealthy collectors understand. Rare coins are not spare change. They are portable wealth, historical assets, and financial leverage wrapped in copper. And the 1970 D penny has become a symbol of that reality. Auction rooms go silent when one surfaces. Phones come out. Bids jump. Why? Because supply is microscopic and demand is global. This coin isn't hunted by hobbyists alone, it's chased by serious money. As the story moves forward, excitement takes center stage. The current collector market is hotter than ever. High net worth individuals, hedge fund level investors, and legacy collectors are all competing for elite American coins. Lincoln cents with documented errors sit at the top of that list. And the 1970 D has earned a reputation as a sleeper coin, one that stayed under the radar for years before exploding into prominence. Today, when authenticated examples appear, prices don't inch upward, they leap. That reported valuation of $854,000 didn't come from hype, it came from demand colliding with rarity. And in markets like this, price is driven by urgency, not logic. Here's another question that snaps people awake. What do you think happens when the next generation realizes these coins aren't being made anymore? No more Denver Mint 1970 errors. No second chances. No reprints. The clock is ticking, and every year more coins are lost, damaged, or locked into private vaults forever. That shrinking supply creates pressure. Pressure creates competition. Competition creates record-breaking prices. This is why seasoned collectors act now, not later. They understand that wealth favors the informed and the decisive. By the final act of this story, the message becomes clear and empowering. This isn't about luck, it's about awareness. The people who build wealth through rare coins aren't gamblers, they're students of history and value. They know that America's most valuable coins often began as overlooked change. And the 1970 Lincoln penny stands as proof that extraordinary opportunity doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. Sometimes it waits in a jar marked spare change. And sometimes, it's already in your possession, waiting for you to recognize it. So here's the moment of urgency. If you own old pennies, especially from the late 1960s and early 1970s, now is the time to pay attention. The market is active. Demand is aggressive. And buyers are ready. Every day you wait is another day someone else sells theirs first. Wealth doesn't reward delay, it rewards action. And the difference between curiosity and life-changing results is simple: taking the next step. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can, and its owner has no idea it could be worth life-changing money. Not hundreds. Not thousands. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here's the question that should immediately stop you in your tracks: what if that penny is already in your home? In today's video, we're stepping back into history, back to 1971, a year when the US Mint produced millions of Lincoln pennies that looked ordinary at first glance. But hidden among them is a rare mint mark error coin that has stunned collectors, shaken auction houses, and reportedly reached values as high as $853,000 in the current high-end collector market. This is not hype. This is how wealth quietly hides in plain sight. Let's begin with the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The majority of Americans have unknowingly spent, lost, or ignored coins that today could fund a retirement, pay off a home, or completely rewrite their financial future. Why? Because they were told, it's just a penny. And yet history has a sense of humor, because sometimes the smallest denomination carries the largest reward. Ironically, the coin most people bend over backward not to pick up is the one that could change everything. Funny, until it's not. Back in 1971, the US Mint struck Lincoln cents at multiple facilities, including San Francisco. Under normal conditions, these coins followed strict production standards. But perfection is a myth in mass production. Machines misalign. Dies wear down. Mint marks vanish, double, or appear where they shouldn't. And when that happens, something extraordinary is born, a mint error that was never supposed to exist. Now here's where excitement starts to build. Certain 1971 Lincoln pennies with rare mint mark anomalies and striking errors have become one of the most aggressively sought-after coins in the US collector market. Why? Because verified examples are extremely scarce, demand is global, and serious buyers, wealthy buyers, are actively hunting them down. When one appears at auction, it doesn't whisper. It roars. Picture a room full of seasoned collectors. People who have seen everything. Gold coins. Silver dollars. Historic rarities. And yet, when a pristine 1971 error penny enters the spotlight, the energy shifts. Bidding accelerates. Numbers climb fast. And suddenly, a coin that once bought a piece of candy is commanding a price that can buy a luxury car, or a home, or freedom from financial stress. That's not fantasy. That's documented collector behavior. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. How many pennies have you owned in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? How many did you actually inspect? Exactly. That's where the fear creeps in. Not panic, regret. The kind that comes from realizing opportunity doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It shows up quietly, disguised as something ordinary, but here's the empowering part of this story. This opportunity is not over. These coins are still being discovered. Still being authenticated. Still being sold. And every year that passes, the supply gets smaller while demand keeps growing. Wealthy collectors aren't slowing down, they're speeding up. Because in uncertain economic times, rare coins become hard assets, and hard assets attract serious money, and let's lighten the mood for just a second. Isn't it ironic? People chase lottery tickets with impossible odds, but ignore a penny with documented collector demand. The lottery says, maybe. Rare coins say, prove it, and get paid. One relies on luck. The other relies on awareness. The real power of the 1971 mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just its rarity. It's the story it tells. A story of overlooked value. Of patience rewarded. Of people who took the time to look closer while others walked right past. That's a mindset. And mindsets create wealth long before money ever shows up. As we connect all the dots, one thing becomes crystal clear. This is not about chasing fantasies. This is about recognizing high-demand collectibles in a market where serious buyers are actively searching. Coins like this don't lose relevance, they gain momentum. They don't fade, they escalate. And when the right example surfaces, it commands attention, respect, and premium dollars. So here's the urgency, and it's very real. Every day you wait is another day the market moves without you. Another auction closes. Another discovery is made by someone else. Another quiet fortune changes hands. The question is no longer, are these coins valuable? The question is, will you be the one who recognizes value before it's gone? I'm talking about the 1976 Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin most people have seen thousands of times and never truly looked at. What if I told you that one single error on this penny has reportedly pushed its value as high as $857,000? Yes, nearly $1 million, for a penny. Now before you dismiss that as impossible, ask yourself this: how many people walked past winning lottery tickets without ever checking the numbers? And more importantly, what if you already own one? This is not just a story about a coin. This is a story about awareness, timing, and the quiet power of knowledge. In 1976, America was celebrating its bicentennial. While the nation focused on fireworks and parades, the Denver Mint was striking millions of Lincoln pennies, marked with a small D beneath the date. Most of those coins were ordinary. But a tiny fraction, a microscopic number, were not. These pennies left the mint with subtle but critical errors that slipped past quality control. And that's where the story turns. Because coin collectors don't pay for metal. They pay for mistakes. And the rarer the mistake, the louder the demand. Now here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. These valuable pennies didn't disappear into museums. They didn't get locked away by governments. They went straight into circulation. Grocery stores. Gas stations. Change from a cashier. Which means the person who found one didn't look special. Didn't feel lucky. Didn't know, at least not at first, that they were holding something capable of rewriting their financial future. And let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable, but important. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny, instead of ignoring it? The 1976 Lincoln cent becomes extraordinary when a specific combination of minting errors appears, errors so subtle that most people would miss them entirely. Off-metal strikes, double dies, misaligned impressions, or rare planchet anomalies transform a common coin into a collector's obsession. High-grade examples with these errors have created intense competition at private sales and elite auctions. In documented cases, collectors have chased these coins aggressively, driving prices into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The figure of $857,000 represents the upper tier, a perfect storm of condition, rarity, and demand. And here's the key point most people don't realize: values like this don't rise slowly. They jump suddenly, when demand spikes and supply is confirmed to be nearly non-existent. This is where urgency enters the picture. The coin market is changing fast. More Americans than ever are searching for tangible assets. Inflation fears, market volatility, and a renewed interest in physical wealth have pushed rare coins into the spotlight. High net worth collectors are not waiting. They are actively hunting. And once a rare penny is authenticated and absorbed into a private collection, it often disappears from the market for decades. Meaning the window for discovery doesn't stay open forever. Miss it once, and it may never come back. That's not fear talking, that's history, and let's reset your attention for a second, because this part surprises people. The most valuable pennies are rarely found by professional treasure hunters. They're found by ordinary Americans cleaning out old boxes, inherited collections, or childhood coin jars. Funny, isn't it? We search the world for opportunity, while ignoring the quiet wealth sitting at home. Abraham Lincoln himself might smile at that irony. Or maybe he'd say, read the fine print, and check the mint mark. By now, you may be feeling a mix of excitement and pressure, and that's exactly where clarity matters. This isn't about hype. This is about positioning yourself intelligently. If you own a 1976 D Lincoln penny, especially one that appears unusual in weight, color, strike, or detail, you may be holding a coin that deserves professional attention. The difference between face value and a six-figure payday is knowledge, authentication, and timing. Serious buyers don't chase rumors, they chase verified rarity. And when that verification happens, the market responds fast. This brings us to the final act of the story, and this is where vision replaces doubt. Imagine discovering that something you overlooked for decades suddenly becomes the key to financial freedom. Imagine selling a single penny and using that capital to invest, travel, support family, or finally live the lifestyle you've earned. This isn't fantasy. This is how rare coin wealth has been built for generations. Quietly. Strategically. Decisively. The real question is not whether valuable coins exist. They do. The real question is whether you will be the person who recognizes opportunity before the rest of the world catches on. Because once the market confirms scarcity, prices don't ask for permission to rise. They simply do. And the people who win are never the ones who waited. So tonight, tomorrow, sometime soon, open that drawer. Look at that jar. Examine those pennies with fresh eyes. Because history has shown us something powerful: wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it whispers from a single cent. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single copper penny sits quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old jar on a shelf. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. It looks ordinary. And yet, it carries a hidden value that has shocked professional collectors, stunned auction houses, and changed lives. What if I told you that a 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, a coin most people ignore every single day, has reached a current market value of up to $852,000? Yes, 1 penny. Before you dismiss that number, ask yourself this uncomfortable question: how many pennies have you already spent, or thrown away, without ever really looking at them? This is not a fantasy, and this is not hype. This is the world of rare coin errors, and tonight, you're stepping inside it. Because if you are over 30, living in the United States, and you've ever handled loose change, inherited old coins, or saved pennies, just in case, then what you're about to hear may directly affect your financial future. And no, this isn't about luck. It's about knowledge. The kind of knowledge wealthy collectors quietly use while everyone else stays unaware. Act 1 begins in 1978, a year when America was changing. Gas prices were rising, disco filled the airwaves, and the US Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies at lightning speed. And when production moves fast, mistakes happen. Small ones. Invisible ones. Errors that slip past quality control and enter circulation unnoticed. One of those mistakes created something extraordinary, a 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark and a rare striking error, a coin that technically should never have existed the way it does. Here's where fear quietly creeps in. Because for decades, these coins were treated like spare change. They were dropped into tip jars. They were used at vending machines. They were lost between couch cushions. And with every passing year, more of them disappeared forever. Melted. Damaged. Forgotten. Scarcity grew silently, while demand rose steadily among elite collectors who understood exactly what they were looking for. If you've ever thought, "I'll check my coins later," understand this: later is the enemy of value. Now let me interrupt you for a second. Quick question. If someone offered you $800,000 for something already in your house, would you even know where to look? Most people wouldn't. And that's exactly why this opportunity still exists. Act 2 is where excitement takes over. Because the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny error isn't just rare, it's highly desirable. Collectors aren't chasing it for nostalgia. They're chasing it because of its documented scarcity, its historical significance, and its explosive auction performance. Coins in exceptional condition, especially those verified by professional grading services, have commanded astonishing prices. The market doesn't whisper about this penny anymore. It watches it closely, and here's the powerful connection most people miss: the people who profit from rare coins aren't gamblers. They're patient. They're informed. They understand that wealth often hides in plain sight. This penny isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it's different. Because it represents a moment when the system slipped, and created opportunity. Let's add a little humor to reset your attention. Imagine telling your younger self, "One day, a penny will be worth more than your house." You'd probably laugh. And yet, here we are. That laugh turns into urgency when you realize the market doesn't wait for disbelief to fade. Right now, demand is being driven by serious money. Investors diversifying beyond stocks. Retirees converting collections into legacy wealth. High-end buyers competing privately before coins ever reach public auction. And every time a verified 1978 no mint mark error penny surfaces, the market reacts. Prices don't drift downward, they spike. Because once a collector acquires one, it rarely comes back onto the market. Act 3 is where everything connects, and where action matters. Because this isn't just about a coin. It's about perspective. It's about understanding that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in a jar, waiting for someone who knows its worth. If you've lived long enough to accumulate coins, inherit belongings, or save change from decades past, you already possess something more valuable than money: access. The question now isn't, "Is this penny real?" The question is, what if you have one? What if the difference between your current lifestyle and a dramatically more comfortable future is already within reach, but only if you look? This is where urgency becomes real. Because every year, fewer authentic examples remain. Every year, collectors grow more aggressive. And every year, people discover too late that what they once had is gone. This is a moment of empowerment. Knowledge puts you ahead. Awareness gives you leverage. And decisive action separates those who hear stories from those who become them. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny error stands as proof that America's smallest denomination can carry life-changing value. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss this as interesting, ask yourself one final question. When opportunity whispers instead of shouts, are you listening? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old piggy bank. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because what if that 1-cent coin, the kind most people throw away without thinking, is secretly worth $857,000? Let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. How many pennies have you already let slip through your fingers? This story doesn't begin in a vault or an auction house. It begins in 1979, at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln pennies were struck and released into circulation. Nothing about that year looked special. No fireworks. No headlines. Just another cent added to America's pocket change. But history has a habit of hiding its greatest treasures in plain sight, and this penny would later become one of the most hunted modern coin errors in the United States. And the truly frightening part? Most people still don't know they've already touched one. Here's where the excitement kicks in. Among the 1979 D. Lincoln cents, a rare mint error was born, an error so subtle that it passed inspection, so quiet that it blended perfectly with ordinary coins, and so powerful that elite collectors today are willing to pay life-changing money for it. We're talking about a coin that has crossed auction blocks at values reaching $857,000, not because of age, but because of a mistake. And in the coin world, mistakes are gold. Now let's pause for a second. Because if you're thinking, I've probably never seen one, that's exactly what everyone who missed out said too. Coin errors don't announce themselves. They don't sparkle. They whisper. And while most people chase loud opportunities, the wealthy learn to listen closely. This is Act 1, the setup. The calm before the realization. The penny you ignored. The change jar you never checked. The inherited collection you meant to sort someday. Fear enters here, not as panic, but as awareness. Because every day you wait is another day someone else cashes in on what you overlooked. Act 2 is where the story shifts, where curiosity turns into power. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent error isn't just rare, it's in demand. High demand. Auction-level demand. Museum-quality demand. The kind of demand that creates bidding wars among serious collectors who already own everything else. These buyers aren't guessing. They know exactly what they're looking for, and they're willing to pay a premium for perfection, or imperfection. In this case. Here's a quick pattern interrupt before we go further. Be honest, when was the last time something in your house could buy you a luxury car without you knowing it? Exactly. That's what makes this exciting. What makes this penny so valuable is the error itself, an anomaly tied to the minting process that should never have made it into circulation. The Denver Mint mark, the alignment, the strike characteristics, all coming together in a way that shouldn't exist. And yet, it does. And that's why collectors don't ask, is it real? They ask, how fast can I get it graded? And grading is where the magic happens. Because once authenticated, once sealed, once proven, this humble 1-cent coin transforms into an asset. Not a hobby. Not nostalgia. An asset. The same way fine art, vintage watches, or classic cars function. Only this one fits in the palm of your hand. Act 2 is also where urgency steps in. The supply is frozen. No more are being made. No second chance. No reissue. And every year, more of these coins are lost forever, melted, damaged, or thrown away by people who didn't know what they had. That shrinking supply is exactly why prices keep climbing, and why serious buyers are aggressively searching right now. Let me add a touch of humor here, because this part always surprises people. That penny you refuse to pick up because it's only a cent. Turns out it may have been smarter than your stock portfolio. Funny how that works. This brings us to Act 3, the transformation. This is where ordinary people step into extraordinary outcomes. The moment when knowledge turns into action. Because the difference between someone who hears this story and someone who benefits from it is simple. One checks their coins, the other doesn't. Imagine discovering that a penny you've owned for decades, maybe inherited from a parent, maybe saved without thought, suddenly positions you in a new financial category. Imagine calling an auction house, not to ask for advice, but to negotiate. Imagine watching collectors compete for something that once sat unnoticed in your home. This isn't fantasy. This is happening now, in today's market, with real buyers and real money, and here's the most empowering part. You don't need to be a coin expert. You don't need a vault. You don't need connections. You need awareness. You need curiosity. And you need to act before the window narrows even further, because markets reward the prepared, not the lucky. And the people who build wealthy lifestyles often do so by recognizing value where others see nothing. That's the real lesson of the 1979 Lincoln penny era. Not just that it's worth up to $857,000, but that opportunity often disguises itself as something small, quiet, and easy to ignore. So tonight, when you hear coins jingle in a drawer, listen differently. When you see a penny, don't dismiss it. When you remember that old collection tucked away somewhere, feel that spark of excitement instead of procrastination. Because the next chapter of this story might not belong to history, it might belong to you. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or the bottom of an old coffee can. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, it may be worth more than a luxury home, more than a lifetime of ordinary savings. What if I told you that a 1987 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, an error coin most people would spend without a second thought, has stunned collectors with valuations reaching as high as $854,000? Before you laugh and say, it's just a penny, ask yourself this: how many fortunes have been lost because someone didn't look twice? This is not just a coin story. This is a story about awareness, timing, and hidden wealth. In 1987, the United States Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies. Most were ordinary. Most were forgettable. But a tiny fraction slipped through the system with subtle yet powerful errors, and among them, the 1987 no mint mark Lincoln penny has become one of the most talked about modern rarities. No mint mark usually suggests Philadelphia, but in this case, it's not the absence that matters, it's the combination of striking anomalies, preservation, and rarity that turns copper into capital. And yes, it's ironic. The same coin people throw into tip jars may be the same coin serious collectors would fight over in a private auction. Funny how value works, isn't it? One man's spare change is another man's retirement plan. Now here's where fear quietly creeps in. Because every single day, these pennies are still being overlooked. They're being sold in bulk. They're being spent at gas stations. They're being passed down without inspection. And once they're gone, they're gone. The market does not reward regret. It rewards preparation. High net worth collectors don't search blindly, they hunt with intention. And when a rare error coin surfaces, especially one tied to a known year like 1987, demand spikes fast. Coins like this don't wait politely for sellers to catch up. They move swiftly into private collections, vaults, and portfolios where wealth is preserved quietly and powerfully. Let's talk about why this coin has created such excitement. The late 1980s marked a transitional era in U.S. coinage. Minting pressures were high, quality control was strained, and errors, though rare, were more likely to escape detection. Certain 1987 pennies exhibit unusual characteristics that seasoned graders immediately recognize: abnormal strikes, alignment issues, surface irregularities, and exceptional condition surviving decades of circulation. When one of these coins appears in near-perfect or uncirculated condition, the market reacts almost emotionally. Collectors aren't just buying copper. They're buying scarcity. They're buying history. They're buying the right to own something most people will never even notice. And here's a little humor to reset your attention: imagine paying for coffee with a penny worth more than the cafe itself. Awkward and expensive, excitement builds when money meets mystery. And the mystery of the 1987 no mint mark penny is what keeps demand alive. Elite buyers understand that rarity is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. This is why prices have surged. Reports from high-end sales and private negotiations suggest valuations climbing into the hundreds of thousands, with top-tier examples reaching the $800,000 range when authenticated and graded at the highest levels. That kind of money doesn't come from hype alone. It comes from confidence, competition, and a deep belief that tangible assets, especially rare U.S. coins, are a hedge against uncertainty. And let's be honest, uncertainty is no stranger to our economy. Now feel the urgency. The audience for these coins is not getting younger. Many top collectors are actively consolidating, buying the best examples they can find before supply dries up completely. Every year that passes reduces availability. Coins are lost. Coins are damaged. Coins disappear into permanent collections. That means the window for discovery is closing, not opening. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1980s, this is not the time for procrastination. This is the time for examination. Because wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it waits for you to wake up, and here's the powerful connection most people miss. This isn't just about selling a coin. This is about changing your financial narrative. Many of today's wealthy collectors started exactly where you are, curious, skeptical, and one decision away from clarity. Selling a rare penny at the right time can fund investments, eliminate debt, support family, or open doors to a lifestyle built on choice rather than obligation. It's no accident that serious money flows toward rare coins. They are portable wealth, historically resilient, and deeply respected by those who understand legacy. Ask yourself, if a single cent can transform into hundreds of thousands of dollars, what else have you underestimated in your life?